with that, we're going to pass it over to Lauren.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I told you to bring the energy. I let them all know, Tom. I gave them a heads up. This is not going to be a sit at your desk and don't do anything kind of session. Thank you all so much for coming. I know we've been talking about doing this for a long time. I see a lot of new faces, so I'm excited to have so many folks here to get some amazing tips from Tom on creating engaging presentations. The focus will be on somewhat on orientation, since a lot of you will be presenting, but I know there will be a lot of applications that you all can take away to anytime you're presenting, not just to students, but to different audiences. We'll touch a little bit on virtual presentations, and probably just by virtue of sitting in this space, you'll get some tips too as well. So we'll go ahead and kick things off. I'm really excited to welcome Tom. We were just talking before this that we've been working together for over a decade now. I first was introduced to Tom by a colleague when I was at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and we started working together, and we've been going at it ever since, every summer pretty much. We've done it virtually, in person, all the different variations. So this is the first time, though, that I've been working with Tom for a program for staff. So I'm really excited to get to share him with you all, and I hope you all will take a lot away from this session. So a little bit about Tom, for those of you who don't know him. So after starting his first business in college, which grew to 1.5 million in annual sales, Tom went on to be the founder and lead facilitator of SwiftKick. Tom has trained almost 1 million people worldwide at some of the largest companies such as Coca-Cola, Apple, Nike, on how to build a culture of connection, trademarked, within their organization. Through his work, he holds an unprecedented 7 national speaking titles. He is a TEDx speaker and has sat on the board for New York City Entrepreneurs Organization and the NYC National Speakers Association. Organizations, both small and large, as the US military, have brought Tom in to train and deploy his award-winning program, Dance Floor Theory Methodology, to increase community member engagement and retention rates. And on a personal note, Tom lives a few blocks from Stephen Colbert. I don't think I knew that. Okay, I'm excited now. Just outside of New York City, named after a cat on a reality show on NBC. He's been featured on the Tofurkey Box. He got kicked off the Oprah Winfrey Show, held a Guinness World Record for hugs, and loves peanut butter so much that he once tried to start a festival called the New York City Peanut Butter Jam. I would have definitely attended that, Tom. So please join me. A warm welcome, Tom.
Lauren, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hey, everyone out there, can you help me in celebrating Lauren? So the ways we're going to celebrate her, first off, can everyone just take your hands and put your fingers right against your camera and just go like this, wiggle your fingers just like that. That's one way we'll celebrate people here. The second way, take your hands up here and just kind of jazz hands it. That's option number 2. Option number 3, take your hands and throw it at your camera. Don't break it. Just throw your hands at your camera. That's option 3. Now, I know some are like, Tom, I don't have my camera on. Head over to that chat box and go ahead and drop a bunch of exclamation points into that chat box. That is the 4 ways. So one more time, I'm going to say, hey, can you all give it up for Lauren? Go ahead and do whatever way you want to celebrate Lauren. Lauren, thank you so much. I'm going to pass you back to the crowd there so that I can jump in. Welcome, everyone. I see some smiling faces. I see some of you eating. I see some of you slouched down like you just woke up. So I'm curious, if you could summarize your thoughts, your emotions, and your physiology in one word, only one word, what would that word be? Go ahead and drop that answer into the chat box. Let's see what we come up with here. Let's see some of these answers here. All right, I love seeing all these come in. I saw someone say jet lag. Welcome back wherever you just traveled from. I think it was Irene. And so I see exhausted, anxious, excited, all across the board there, all the feelings. So let me ask another question. And this one's going to be a poll question. It's going to pop up on your screen. The question is, how many hours did you sleep last night? Go ahead and put your answer into that poll question that just popped up on the screen. And I'm going to close this poll out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Now, before I reveal the results of this poll, if you were to guess on average, just looking at all the other participants, on average, how many hours do you think this group slept? What would that average guess be? Go ahead and put your answer into the chat. I'm seeing 6, 7, 7, 6, 6, a lot of 7s and 6. All right, let's see. Let's see how you compare. Here are the results. The results are, as a group, it looks like you're pretty solidly between 6 and 7. So I would probably put it at 6.7-ish, maybe a little higher. Not bad, because the last group I work with, by the way, their average was 0.8. So you're already ahead of the game, and I appreciate that as a presenter. Yes, they were college students. You're right. All right, so I'm learning about this group, and I have another poll question. If you had the choice, would you rather have more time or more money? Go ahead and put your answer into that poll that's popping up right there. And then also, Lauren, hey, Lauren, I'm going to bring you back into the screen one more time and ask you to share with us your answer to this question. Which one would you rather have, more time or more money? Go ahead and unmute yourself and then share your answer as to why you chose it.
Ooh, this is a tough one. But as a parent of 2 kids, it's really even. But I think more time. I think I would take the time.
You take the time.
Make some more money. If I
Yeah.
had time, I would take the time, I think.
But that, yeah, and doesn't it feel like those, if I had another hour, I would fill that hour, and I wish I had another hour. I always feel like there'd always be 1 hour more that I needed,
Right.
no matter
But
what.
I feel like it's kind of the same with money too. No one ever has enough money. So
Someone just shook their head and said, no, I can have enough money. I'll take it. I'll be good. Lauren, let's see how you compare to your peers. Here are the results. More time or more money. 56% of you said money. You're happy with the money, but that's actually pretty even, so not bad. Hey, can you all help me in celebrating Lauren? Give Lauren some acknowledgement right there. Give Lauren some acknowledgement with the exclamation points or the celebration. All right, I'm learning about the group. Thanks, Lauren. I'm going to move you off the screen as we go on to the next poll question here. Let's see, this question. If you had the choice, would you rather have a life pause button or a life rewind button? And we're going to bring a brand new person into the screen. Dylan, I called you out earlier. Dylan, I'm going to bring you in. It's a smile, Dylan. I can't resist it. Dylan, what would you choose if you chose between a life pause and life rewind? And then why would you choose it? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I chose pause. And the reason I chose pause is because I feel sometimes life gets busy and you just need to like press pause, maybe pause and do a little bit of work, pause and make a little bit more money. But I think just a moment to just kind of take in the moment and pause.
I like that. I like that. I used to say rewind. And I don't know, Dylan, if you ever heard this phrase, let your past mess be your future message. I don't know if you ever heard that.
Oh,
phrase.
yes, I have.
Yeah. And I thought about it because I was like, oh, there's a couple moments in my life where I would go back and redo it. But now that I've gotten some distance from those moments, I actually realized I learned some amazing things, life lessons that actually I'm not sure I would have learned anywhere else except for those horrible moments. And so I wish it on no one else, but at the same time, I'm glad that I went through it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm with you. I'm on the pause. Let's see how you compare to the group here. 58 to 42. Wow, look at that. Almost split again. This is good. Hey, can you all help me give Dylan some acknowledgement there? Let Dylan see those hands of celebration or the exclamation point. Thanks for sharing. We're going to move on. I just have a couple more questions. I'm learning about this group. Here's the new question. Would you rather win the lottery or live twice as long? Go ahead and put your answer in there, and I'm going to find a brand new person to bring onto the screen. Casey Carlton. Welcome, Casey. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to ask Dylan this question, but Casey, where on campus are you? Like, what do you do on campus? And then what would your answer to this question be?
I work at the School of Business as an academic advisor. And for this question, I put win the lottery because I feel like the extra money would let me enjoy my time now more. And I just hit a milestone age, so I'm not really looking to double that.
I like that. I like that answer. I also, though, twice as long, am I in good health would be my question. Because if it's twice as long, but when we just keep aging and
if you just keep aging, then no. If we could pause that,
then But if I were in good health, I don't know. Let's see, Casey, how you compare to your peers. As a group, 85% of you said, Tom, just show me the money. You're like, I'll figure the rest out. You just give me the money. You're working with a higher ed group when they're like, Tom, just give me I'll figure it out. Casey, thanks for sharing. Hey, give Casey some acknowledgement. Sending Casey off the screen. We have one final poll question that I'm going to ask the group, and I'm learning a lot about this group here. So this is the last and final one, which is, oh, this one's tricky. Would you rather no one shows up at your wedding or no one shows up at your funeral? Ooh. And let's see, I have someone here I'm going to bring onto the screen. Rachel, welcome to the screen. Rachel, what would you choose between no one showing up at your wedding or no one show up at your funeral? Ooh.
I would say probably a wedding.
And
Or at
why?
least because I would want people to show up at my funeral, meaning I did something with my life that people want to celebrate as I leave the earth. So probably funeral, like
Nice.
funeral for people to be at.
Yeah, got it. I got married several years ago, and I have to say how expensive each plate was. So if my second cousin doesn't want to show up, I'm good. I'm okay. I can let that person go. I have fewer people there because it costs me less. That's great. And Rachel, what department are you at on campus?
Dean of students.
Dean of students. All right, perfect. And is that your artwork behind you?
No, those were like goodbye notes from old colleagues when I was leaving to go to a different institution.
Aw,
Travel photos too.
love it, love it. All right, Rachel, let's see how you compare to your peers here. Sharing the results. We're almost split again, 47% to 53%. Amazing. I can't believe that this group is consistently almost split. Hey, can you all help me? Let's give Rachel some acknowledgement. Let Rachel see those hands of celebration right there. Thanks for sharing, Rachel. I'm going to move you off of the screen there. And I'm learning a lot about the group. So now I get to ask the question, actually, I'm going to say more the thing than the question that I actually wanted to ask you all. If you look around your desk right now, you have a lot of objects there. In just a moment, I'm going to quickly ask you to find two objects. One of those objects needs to be dark colored and one of those needs to be light colored. Quickly, I'm going to give you just 22.6 seconds. Find that object, and then we'll come back and share what we're going to do with it. Ready and go. All right, quickly, if you have can you hold up your light colored object? Let's just see that light. We got Yoda in the screen. We got some shoes, a coffee mug, some drugs. No, that's a medicine, not drugs, medicine. Highlighter, football, perfect. This is all good. All right. Globe. I love this. All right, thanks. Set that down. And then hold up your dark colored object that you have there. This is a external hard drive. I'm seeing a globe. I'm seeing pens, a little action figure, glasses. Love it. All right, set those down. Perfect. Now in the chat box, if you don't have your camera on, you just get to answer the question in the chat box. But for everyone else that has their camera on, in just a moment, I'm going to put up a would you rather question between choice A and choice B. When you do that, can you put up your light colored object or your dark colored object to show your answer to that question? So here's the first one, and I have to move to the middle of the screen here. The first question is, would you rather, if you had the choice, meet an alien or meet a ghost? Go ahead and put up that color choice. See how you compare to your peers. Perfect. All right, thank you. Set that down. Next question. If you had the choice, would you rather always be 10 minutes late or always be 10 minutes early? If you had the choice, which one would you do? Those of you putting up 10 minutes late, I don't understand. We don't connect. All right, set that down. Love it. By the way, I was with a group once where they actually had a fine. It was only like $10 or $20. If you were late, then you had to pay this fine, but they changed it from if I was late, then everyone else in the group had to pay the fine. So it's like forcing me to think about the fact that they showed up and I didn't. And I was like, I sprinted so fast to that meeting. Another thing, I don't know if you've all heard of this, but there's a little clock. It's attached to your smartphone and everyone anonymously puts in their salary. And then in the meeting, the clock sits there in the middle of the table. And instead of the time ticking away, it shows the dollar amount of that meeting. So you see if it runs, because then it tallies up, what's the cost of this meeting? I don't know if I would ever use that in a meeting, but I definitely heard about that. Some of you are like, I'm in, I want to do it. All right, two more. Would you rather never stand in lines or always get green traffic lights? Which would you choose? I love the Yoda. Take a look at your peers, see how you compare. Thank you for sharing. All right, two more. These are the last two. Would you rather be the smartest person, but not nice, or the nicest person, but not necessarily smart? Ooh, nice, but not necessarily smart. Smart, but not necessarily. All right. Wow. Set the hands down. Let's go ahead and set that down. My Midwest self is holding this up because in the Midwest, yeah, it'd be tough not to be nice. Last and final one. I have learned a lot about this group. Here it is. Last and final one. Would you rather be the president of the United States or the CEO of Walmart? Irene is saying no thank you to either of them. If you had to choose between the two, which one would you pick? All right. Perfect. Set those down. Love seeing all the answers. Thank you for sharing. Quickly, on a scale of, let's just go 1 to 10. 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. How would you rank the level of engagement of this program so far compared to all the other virtual programs that you have participated in? Go ahead and drop your answer into that chat box. All right, I am seeing a lot of 7, 8, 9s, 10s coming in. And I have also sat in many other people's programs and I've seen a lot of different styles. The question is why? Why has this program been engaging, more engaging than other programs you have been in? And the secret to that answer is going to help you to create highly engaging presentations at orientation. And by the way, you can use it anywhere else. I have under my belt 16 years as a professional speaker, 7 national speaking titles, and I've done over, I would say, probably 1,000 keynotes at this point. And my goal here today is to give you all the secrets, the tips, and the strategies that I use to repetitively create a highly engaging program that works especially with students. I have to tell you, I am so thankful that I got my career started in higher ed versus corporate, because I see corporate speakers who come into higher ed and get eaten alive by the students. Because unlike in corporate world, where even if someone is not interested, they have 2 things. 1, they know how to pretend to be interested, or 2, their boss is sitting nearby or their manager, so they engage because their kind of career might be on the line. Whereas students, especially at orientation, they don't, that you know that they don't care. So we have to get really smart. And by the way, I never blame the students for not engaging. I never blame the students for not participating. I focus on how I can, as the facilitator, the speaker, change the way I'm delivering the program that makes it more highly engaging for them, that they can't help themselves but want to participate. So now I could just list these off and give you all my secrets, but that would not be the way to create a highly engaging program. So instead, I'm going to challenge you on a piece of paper, right? By the way, if you're in the chat box, I'm actually going to shut the chat box off right now because I don't want anyone to share these answers. I want to save it for the time being. On a piece of paper, write down 5 things you have noticed about this program that made it more engaging than other programs you have been a part of. I'm going to give you exactly 72.6 seconds to make that happen. Here we go. Ready? 5 things that you've noticed. Ready and go. All right. At this point, you should have at least 5 things that you have noticed that made this program more engaging than others. In just a moment, we're actually going to leave this main room and head out into a smaller group. And in that smaller group, you'll have about 4 or 5 people in there. And your challenge in the smaller group is to just go around, share what you wrote down, and see if you can add to your list. Now, the person who starts first in that smaller group is going to be the person with the longest hair. Sorry, Dylan, I don't think you're going to win that one. Sorry. But the person with the longest hair is going to share first, and then go around to each person shares. When you finish, hang out in your room, and then I'll bring everyone back at the same time so we can all come back to the main room. So again, the person with the longest hair shares first. There'll be about 4 or 5 people in your room. If your audio doesn't work, try and chat into the chat box when it's your turn. With that, can you all just take your left hand and wave goodbye so that Zoom knows that we're heading into those breakout rooms? All right, see you all afterwards. Bye. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Getting a little crazy.
And we're going to bring you in. There we go.
John Forte, grab the mic.
Love it, love it, love it. Back, welcome back, welcome back. Quickly, can you just give some acknowledgement, some celebration to your group, your small group, whether that was via, go ahead and throw the hands in, drop it in the chat, whatever you need to do there to celebrate your small group there. And speaking of that small group, hopefully by now you have more than 5 things that you wrote down that made this program more engaging than others. In just a moment, I'm going to ask for some volunteers, someone that maybe is willing to share with the large group what your group shared. I did not ask you to pick someone, so I'm just going to throw it out that we need some volunteers. Can you just raise your digital hand if you're willing to be the volunteer to share either what you wrote down or what the rest of your group wrote down? All right. We got some great volunteers here. I'm going to start with Katoya. Can I bring you into the screen to share first?
I guess, sure. Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
I had a phenomenal group.
Perfect. Katoya, first off, where on campus are you at? What do you do?
I am the director of the Student Financial Management Center.
That's an important one. That's an important one.
Yeah, we have lots of fun over here.
Oh, yeah. The good conversations. Okay, let's tell you, what are some of the things that your group shared?
The music, the brightness of your backdrop, your energy, even your dress, the colors that you have on, the two-way communication, bringing folks in, acknowledging them, celebrating them, the use of objects.
Oh, these are so good. I'm going to pick one of them, Latoya, and roll with the group with that one. Is that all right with you?
Sure. And
then we'll bring someone else in and we'll keep going. And with that, first off, hey, can everyone just give Katoya some acknowledgement there? Hands of celebration. I'm going to move Katoya off the screen. There we go. Perfect. Let's talk about one of my favorite ones. Let's talk about music. Before we talk about what type of music, imagine for a moment, I had the opportunity to look at all of your playlists, your Spotify playlist, your Pandora playlist, your Apple iTunes, whatever, wherever you have music. And I think for some of these, you can even put a name there, like a special name. You can create a name for that playlist, or you can just have a category. So here's my question to the group, and I'm going to ask you to put your answer into the chat box. What playlist, what style of music do you listen to that if the world knew you listened to that music, you'd be slightly embarrassed? You'd be slightly embarrassed about that playlist or that style of music that you really like, but maybe if the world knew, you'd be slightly embarrassed. Go ahead and drop your answer into that chat box. Let's see what some of you come up with here. Ready and go.
You gonna say me? God bless the dead as my son survived.
All right, these are some great Bee Gees mashups. I see what you did there. Folk music, ABBA, Blue-Eyed Soul, country. Someone said heavy metal. There, Sue said heavy metal. Southern Soul Blues, Pimp Juice Radio. I don't even know. This is great. Thank you for sharing. And in the spirit of vulnerability and transparency, I just want to share one of my playlists. A quick backstory is growing up, I played soccer. Basketball and soccer, those are my 2 sports. And I know you can't tell, but I'm 6'4", so I had some basketball, and then I just love soccer, so I played that. In the off season, I always would go running because I wanted to condition myself for the season. Now, I'm going to age myself, and I know some of you are going to nod your head because you know this world really well. But growing up, we didn't have MP3s. And CDs had just been invented. They were just starting to be sold. So that means everything was on cassette tapes for my era. Yeah, the Walkman. Now, you couldn't go running with a CD because it would skip. So but I knew that the world was shifting to CDs. So I stopped buying cassette tapes, and I had one cassette tape that I used to go running over and over again. That cassette tape is for a soundtrack, and it's a soundtrack of a Disney movie, and that Disney movie is The Lion King.
When he was a young warthog.
So for months and months, I ran to the Lion King soundtrack. So now I am like conditioned. Every time I hear something from the Lion King soundtrack, I want to go, like I get conditioned to go, I got to start running. So can you feel the love tonight? And I get so excited. I'm like, let's go. Now imagine if you all came in here today and would probably be really confused. If you did that to start off a program, I bet your students would be very confused. So the very first lesson of music is that we want to use their music, not your music. I know you love ABBA. I know you love heavy metal. I know you love Rammstein. I was seeing if I actually had some Rammstein. I don't. Okay. I know that you love heavy metal death music, but do not play that for this group, because we need to create music that is theirs and not yours. So that's the first tip of music. The second tip, have you noticed up until this point that every single time I am not talking, there's music playing? The only time it wasn't happening was I was saying, welcome, welcome during that opening. But here's the key. We want to fill the space. So every time you as the speaker or facilitator are not talking, have music playing. When does that happen? When they're walking into the room, have music playing. When they're writing down by themselves, have music playing. When they're talking to each other about something, have music playing. When they're walking out of the room, have music playing. Always fill the space with that music. It is critical to creating that engaging environment. Music is one of the things that so few people do, but if you walk out of here and do nothing else, I highly recommend doing the music, because that will automatically increase the energy in the room. Last and final one for music, the tip is set the tone. We want to set the tone with the music. So the style of the music has to match what we're trying to do with the group. So if they're walking in the room, I am not going to be playing this song. I'm not going to be jamming to Enya. I am definitely going to be having some upbeat, staying alive. Automatically, like, people just start nodding their heads with it. But if they're writing down, if I ask them, hey, go to your sheet and write something down like you all did, I'm not going to be playing this song. It's too much energy. So instead, I'm going to be doing something more reflective like this. In the past, I used to use classical music for when I wanted them to be introspective. But I realized that this generation, they're not connecting well with that classical music. In fact, it becomes a bit more of a turn off than a turn on. But I found the secret, and I'm going to share it with you now. The secret is, instead of using classical music when you want them to be introspective, anytime you ask them to turn and fill something out or write something down, instead of using classical music, here's the key. The best option I have heard is, this would be an example. This is instrumental hip hop. So instrumental hip hop is the beat that exists underneath hip hop songs, but without the lyrics. There is a whole genre of them. You just go and you can find it on any of the Spotify. Just look up the words instrumental hip hop. And it's the reason it works is because oftentimes it's a slower beat. So it slows down the heart rate. It gets them in a more thinking mode, introspective mode, but also it's repetitive. And because it's repetitive, it's almost like we're hypnotizing them into this space of, okay, I'm going to write this down. So that's my key, is to try out instrumental hip hop. Those are my 3 tips for music. Katoya, I appreciate you queuing that up. We're going to keep going. And by the way, drop questions into the chat if you have any questions. And Lauren, maybe you could help like field those, because I don't see the chat always. But I want to grab some more of the people. There were more people who had their hands up and I lost them. They're gone now. Oh, someone's asking, how do I play music through virtual? That's a great question. To play music through virtual, on your screen, if you are the host or the co-host, there's an option to share just audio. So if you see down at the bottom, there's a little button that says, there's a little space that says share screen. If you click on it and then do advanced share, then you have the option to do computer audio, and that feeds the audio directly through my computer versus trying to play it from my phone, because playing it through my phone is not going to be good sound. Great question. All right, let's bring someone else in here. Teresa, welcome. Teresa, can you just, before you start sharing your list, share what department are you in? And
I am a librarian at VCU Library, so I'm in the Student Success Department.
Love it.
And Katoya took all of our ideas because I'm just going to share everything. So we didn't have that many left that we talked about, but our group was a great group too. One thing, and hold on, I screenshotted you and I had to paste it in a graphics program real quick. The time delimited activities, I don't think was mentioned, which is, here's something I want you to do, and here's a short period of time. I'm going to give it to you. And also a running clock, though I was looking for maybe your clock on screen, because I know we use those as well, but having the enthusiasm of a time like a contest. So that was one thing that we talked about as well.
Those are great ones. Those are great ones. Let me pick up. So first off, I want to just give a quick ode to librarians. Anytime I'm at a higher ed conference, the thing about librarians is oftentimes they're huddled up together on the side of the conference. Like they're huddled up in the chatting, but every time I've gotten into one of those circles, I always hear the best possible conversations. And I think it's a combination of just like, what would it be? Like, there's just a lot of passion for that particular role as a librarian. But then there's also, and I don't know, and obviously, Teresa, you can say this, like your role has evolved so much because of technology that like, it's almost, I have this massive passion for this. Technology is, and the world is shifting so much that I want to figure this out. And I always try and get into those circles to chat. So anyways.
We moved from being the gatekeeper. Yes, you can have this item, but you have to bring it back and we're going to charge you money if you don't bring it back, to a let's work side by side to find the information you're looking for. And I'll show you so you can do it by yourself, but also you can ask me later. So It has been a transition for many people. But yes, we do tend to love our jobs.
So everyone else, go have lunch with a librarian. That's it. There we go. Acknowledgement. Give Teresa some acknowledgement right there. Let Teresa see those hands of celebration. All right, I'm going to actually share another one here. This is a good one. Everyone, on your piece of paper, wherever it's at, whatever you're taking notes with, can you write down the word icebreaker? Just write down that word icebreaker. Now, before I share anything about icebreakers, I'm going to actually, in just a moment, unmute every single person in here. Don't worry if it's weird background noises. It doesn't matter because everyone's going to be unmuted. I want to pretend for a moment you're a group of first-year students and I am standing on stage, and imagine for a moment we had a device attached to their brain that would release the sound of what they're thinking in their brain as soon as you, the speaker, say, hey, everyone, we're going to do an icebreaker. Okay. So, and I'm going to unmute everyone in 3, 2, in just a moment, and then go ahead and just, I'll say the phrase and then just release the sound or the verbiage or whatever. Okay, here we go. Hey, everyone, we're about to do an icebreaker. How do you feel about that?
No.
Perfect. That is so good. So here's my question. Actually, I'm not even going to say the question. Just take your pencil or pen or whatever and just cross through, put an X through icebreaker. From this moment forward, you are never allowed to use the phrase icebreaker. We are not allowed to, but the end result of icebreakers are always really great because they're more connected. They tend to be smiling, they're laughing, but the phrase icebreaker has so much negative energy attached to it. Don't fight it. So I'm going to give you some strategies to create an icebreaker without saying the word icebreaker. The very first thing is, if you need to say something at all, just call it a group activity if you need to. But I'm actually suggesting we don't even say we're going to do a group activity. In fact, I'm suggesting that we just roll right into it. Don't even tell them that you're going to do this. You just roll right into it. In fact, we've actually done it here today. And here are the 3 phrases that I highly recommend you to use to be able to do an icebreaker without saying. The very first thing is you have an opportunity to. Hey, everyone, in just a moment, you're going to have an opportunity to. The next one, your challenge is. All right. So in just a moment, your challenge is to find 1 light object and 1 dark object on your desk. And then lastly, you get to. The person with the longest hair gets to go first. If anyone's interested, these 3 phrases come from a whole body of research called neuro-linguistic programming. About 30% of neuro-linguistic programming is fake and it's not real. The other 70% has some real value to it and is backed up by legit science and research. And what these 3 phrases do is they are unconsciously tricking the brain into thinking they have a choice. Because when people don't think they have a choice, they will they have a higher chance of resisting it. But what we're doing here is we're giving them the mental belief that they have a choice. But I'll tell you what, when I stand in front of your first-year students, they are going to do it. They are going to do the thing. I just don't want to have to fight it with them. So I like to have this sort of peer-to-peer sense versus a big me, little you. And so what I do is I say, hey, everyone, in just a moment, you're going to have an opportunity to find 2 other people in the room. When you find that person, your challenge is to share with them the 3 things that make you nervous about starting your first year. Oh, and by the way, the person with the longest hair gets to go first. All right. That's how I would roll into an icebreaker. Now, a couple things there. By saying the longest hair goes first, you can also use the person born furthest from this room, the person who has the most number of pets at home, the person who's the oldest, the person who's the youngest, the person who's taking the most number of credit hours. We're doing 2 things by doing that. Number 1, we're presetting who goes first. So there isn't that awkward, no, you go, no, I'll go, who's going to go? I don't know. Don't let them have that awkward moment. Help them out. It's like oil on the wheel. It greases it, makes it easier. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's an icebreaker within an icebreaker. Person who's born furthest from the room gets to go first. Where were you born? Where were you born? Where were you born? No way, I was also born in Michigan. Put your hand up. Who else is born in Michigan? I was looking to see if anyone here was. No? Okay. Just me. Right there. So it's a get to know you within a get to know you. So that's my ode to not using. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Maddie. I appreciate it. There's one other person here. Maddie, put your city in there. I need to know now. I'm by Lawrence, Michigan. Dearborn, what? We're close. We're close. I'm in Lawrence, Michigan. By the way, Lawrence, Michigan used to be our claim to fame. It's a tiny little town, farm town. It has more stray cats than it does humans that live there. Fun fact. But it used to have its claim to fame was a Waffle House on the corner right off the highway. But now they've torn down that Waffle House, and now our claim to fame is the largest weed dispensary in the state. So there you go. My hometown has got some fame going for it. All right, so we got that. Thank you. We're going to keep going. Virginia, I'm going to bring Virginia into the spotlight here. We got some more serious things we haven't even covered yet, and there's so much more good stuff. Teresa, first, what part of campus are you at? And then go ahead and share your lists there. Virginia, what part of campus are you at? And then share with the group.
So I'm over with Casey. I'm over at the School of Business, and I work at Business Career Services.
Business Career Services. All right, nice, thanks. And what are some things your group came up with?
So something I think that we came up with is the way, and it might be the neuro-linguistics, it's the way that you use words. So for example, I would never think about putting a student with their camera, but you kept talking about, oh, I'm going to do a spotlight on someone. So I thought that was very positive. And then the other thing that I thought you did is I started realizing we started talking about the fact that when you did polls afterwards, you kept saying, oh, I'm getting to know you guys. That's really great. So you created community by saying those things.
I love it. These are some good ones. I'm trying to see. So certainly the poll questions, the would you rather, those are some of the ones that are in there that are really helpful. And the thing I'm going to highlight based on what you're saying is it's called gradient engagement. The idea with gradient engagement is that we don't want to try and get them to do the hardest thing right off the bat. We want to warm up to it. So the very first thing I actually asked this group to do was to acknowledge Lauren. That was the first thing. Then I said one word into the chat box. Then I asked you about sleep. And then we went on from there, ultimately leading up to that small group discussion that you had. But if I would have thrown you right into that small group discussion, it may have been too much for someone. Now, you all are professionals, so I'm sure I actually probably could have just thrown you in and you'd be like, okay, we've been here before. We know how to do this. But with first-year students and students in general, we have to warm them up. In facilitation, and I'm going to share this a little bit later, in facilitation, they call this psychological safety. Psychological safety is the idea of there's three parts to it. The first part is we want to have them have a psychological safety with us. Essentially, do they trust me? So psychological safety, first, I want them to have comfort with me as a facilitator. Second, I want them to have comfort with each other as peers. And third, I want them to have comfort with the space that we're in. Those are the three levels of psychological safety that we're building up. So it's with me, with peers, and with the room. The way we do that is through gradient engagement. Start off with the most simple possible thing you can do, and then slowly work up to that larger and larger activity that you're leading up to. With that, hey, can you all help me and give Virginia some acknowledgement? Let Virginia see those hands of celebration. Thanks for sharing. Elizabeth, I'm going to bring you into the spotlight here. Elizabeth, go ahead and share where you're at on campus, and then what did your group come up with? There's some big ones we're still missing, by the way.
I am the director of First Gen Student Experience. And one of the things that we noticed is that your Zoom operations are almost flawless. You don't pause. I know I do this and a lot of other people do this. Go, okay, I'm going to share my screen. Hold on a second. So with the music, you don't have any lag time, but I think that plays a big part into the no lag time. So we're not focused on that for you. We're just with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That is, it's part experience, having done it so many times, but there's some tricks here. Obviously, you notice this is built in. I'm not sharing screen so that my face becomes super tiny and then this becomes really large. This is the newscaster. The way I'm doing that for anyone who's interested is all this is a virtual background. I have a green screen back here, and all it is, I'm uploading my slide. So this is a slide. This is a PowerPoint slide. The whole thing is, but I took the actual content and shrunk it down into just this corner and then uploaded it to a virtual background in Zoom. So if you saw right now, what I have open is I went to Zoom, preferences, settings, background, and I have it open and I'm just clicking from slide to slide or background to background, and it's showing the different ones. This is the newscaster-like approach. Yes.
Can I ask how many screens you have
open right now?
In general, do you just have one screen? Do you have multiple screens? How do you manage all these open items?
Yeah. So I actually would say for anyone who's doing this, if possible, have someone else helping out. Again, the only reason is I've done this a bunch and I'm also comfortable with tech. So put those together. So believe it or not, I have my two nice screens right here, but I don't use that for Zoom calls because all of my slides and all my best music is on my laptop because that's what I bring with me on the road. Believe it or not, this is just a laptop right here. So how many windows do I have open for this one program? I have the settings for Zoom. I have the Zoom screen. I have the chat box pushed out. I have music pushed out. It's a music. And then I have the breakout rooms. And then I have just notes, like the flow of the program. So that's 6 different windows. That is not normal. Don't do that. Don't do that. Either get support, have someone else be on that call with you that manages the breakout rooms, the chat box, if they can, also the music, that helps too, because most people cannot be facilitator and logistics manager. These are great. Thank you. Let's give Elizabeth some acknowledgement right there. Give Elizabeth some acknowledgement. Love it. Thanks for sharing. So many more good ones we have not even talked about. Let's go to this one. Actually, Elizabeth, this is related to you. How many of you have ever seen a slide that looked like this before? Like a PowerPoint that popped up and looked like this? Just raise your hand, nod your head, something. We've seen this type. Or we've seen one that might look like this. Yeah, and Casey, just to answer your question before I go on, no, it is a separate window for PowerPoint, no, but it's actually, I use virtual backgrounds of Zoom as my PowerPoint. That's the only reason I'm able to be big while this is a newscaster-like screen up here.
So how do you switch screens? Go to the next slide. How do you do that? Through Zoom?
Yeah, hang with me, team. I'm going to take a picture of my screen so you can actually see what it looks like from here. And then I'm going to hold this up to the camera. Do you see that right there is the main Zoom window? And then right here are the settings. And then this is all the virtual backgrounds. So I have this open and I'm clicking on each one of these to rotate between slides. Okay, so on this, yes, each slide is saved as a different image in the virtual background. All right, so here we go. You got slides that look like this, slides that look like this, slides that look like this. We've all seen these type of slides. The room is super dark and you're presenting there. I call this death by PowerPoint. I have an idea for a TV show. I fly around the country quite a bit and I get on planes and I can always see like a seat or two in front of me. I see someone working on their PowerPoint for an upcoming presentation. And I see slides like this and like this all the time. And I want to have a TV show. It's a reality show where what happens is as soon as we take off, the cameras rush to this person and I stand next to him. I'm like, you're going to ruin that presentation. We have exactly 90 minutes before this plane lands to make you create a highly engaging program. Are you ready? And they say yes. And then for the plane, I don't think anyone would ever actually do this because I don't know, but that Aaron would watch it. Perfect. So I want to give you the tips to create a highly engaging PowerPoint so that you don't have death by PowerPoint. I call this creating PowerPoints for humans. Ones where it's a supplement, it supports you, it isn't the main point of the program. And there's 4 main elements of it. The first one is passion. Passion is not about the actual PowerPoint itself. It's actually about the presentation, the delivery of this person right here, very passionate. Look at that speaker. That face is passionate. This person right here, this is very passionate person. This person is very passionate. This person is not passionate. So if we show up at 15%, the group only has permission to show up at 15%. What I mean is your group is never going to show up at a higher level of engagement than you. So if we show up at 15, we give them permission to show up at 15. If we show up at 50, we give them permission. If we show up at 100, we give them permission. It doesn't mean they will, but it just means they have the opportunity to. So that means if you are tired, frustrated, annoyed, don't bring it to the stage because it's not fair to them to bring all your baggage, the fact that you didn't sleep, the fact that someone cut you off on the highway, the fact that you and your spouse are arguing, or the fact that you didn't have your coffee yet, whatever it is, don't bring that to stage because it's not fair to those students because they're only going to show up at the level of energy or engagement you show up. So the very first thing is be passionate. Now, look at this sentence here. We are working on this new widget that is a game changer. Everyone that's used it so far is blown away by the level of value it's providing. Would you be interested in learning more? Okay, so this is like a sales kind of pitch. I'm going to share with you a couple images. Speaking of passion, and I want to see if you can share or read through this sentence as if you are that person. So here's the first one. The first person is going to be, actually, I'm going to give you 2, and you choose which one you want to read. Pick one of these faces and read through as the emotion of this person. Just quietly to yourself. Go ahead and read through. I'm going to do it as well. All right. Now, if you had the choice, who would you rather listen to? My guess is this person right here. Because if this person showed up and delivered a program, the chances of them showing up at that high level of engagement and other people, again, the students will never show up at a higher level of engagement than you. Here are two more. So now thinking about all four of these. Now here's the key. When I started professional speaking, I knew of the Tony Robbins of the world. I knew of the Mel Robbins of the world. I knew these people who were very just high energy. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that. And what I found is that it's not about faking who you are on stage. It's about amplifying your level of engagement. And what that means is if you are not naturally, I'll tell this, by show of hands, just by show of hands here, who's an introvert in the room? Where are my introverts in the room? All right, where are my extroverts in the room? And who's an ambivert? Somewhere in the middle? Where are the ambiverts? Believe it or not, I am ambivert trending introvert, but yet my career is 100% extrovert. So after programs, all I want to do is do nothing. I want to go take a walk on the way. Sometimes I put my headset in and I'm not listening to anything. I just have it on mute. So it just mutes all the noises. And so here's the key is I know how I have to turn it on for these programs. I find my natural self, which is storyteller and content deliverer, and I increase that level of energy so that I show up at this level to give them permission to show up at this level. But none of this is fake. This is 100% who I am. It just requires more of me. Extroverts tend to have an easier time in front of people if they're doing large group. Introverts, I highly recommend potentially pulling out more stories, more activities as ways to use within your program. So it's not just talk, because that gets exhausting. I know I feel it myself. So let me give the next thing, pictures. I'm amazed at how much people mess up on these pictures. Here are my keys to creating amazing PowerPoints. The first thing is fill the whole screen when possible. Now, virtually, I obviously can't do that, but in person, I have the whole screen and it looks like this. The whole screen has these ducks on it. Where do you get good pictures from? I'm sure some of you have some resources. I'm sure some of the librarians know some of these places, but I'm going to drop one of them in here. Pixels is a free resource, has tons of free images, and it's free, royalty free. You don't even have to sign up to download. I grabbed tons of images from there. Now that you have the image, what's next? The next is use fewer, bigger words. So for example, now instead of just having the ducks on the screen, I might say something like ducks are great on it. And that might be the image then that I put up on the screen. So now I'm using fewer words. The key here is don't let the PowerPoint be everything you're going to say, because what's going to happen is the students are only going to pay attention to the PowerPoint and start reading it and stop listening to you and stop paying attention to you. And chances are they're going to finish that PowerPoint much faster than you finish your main point. Then the last part with pictures is make sure it makes sense. Make sure that whatever you're putting on the screen makes sense. For example, don't do this. Ducks are great. And then you're looking at the coffee, because now your people in the audience are going to be sitting there going, wait, why is coffee on the screen with ducks? People sometimes use beautiful images because they're like, oh, I should just put up a beautiful image. No, make sure it has purpose. It makes sense. Unless here, you know what this might be good for? If you tell me if a duck eats coffee, the caffeine actually does this to the body, and now all of a sudden it makes sense. But if it doesn't, if these don't relate together, don't have a picture that doesn't relate. All right, two more quick ones. And I want to move on to another major topic we have not covered yet. Is prepare. It's amazing how even just the little bit of preparation for a presentation can be valuable. Just the slightest bit, practice it. I've had some really big presentations in my life. I did a TEDx talk at UCLA. I spoke on stage with the CEOs of Apple, United Airlines, At the US military, I've spoken in room filled with all 5-star, 4-star generals, like big names in the room and on stage. My preparation for preparing goes like this. And I constantly am scanning the world for stories and lessons. So if anything happens, I'm constantly scanning the world for a story and a lesson. Next, I write that down. I either journal about it, I write it as a blog post. So I scan, then I write it down. Next, I start telling it in small groups. I'll tell it to my spouse, I'll tell it to some friends, and I'll try it out. I'll hear what works and doesn't work. Third, I'll then prepare it for stage, but I need to practice delivering it. My strategy for practicing delivering it is actually walking and talking. So I'll take a walk and I'll just start talking my speech out. People who see me think I'm ridiculous, but it's okay because I used to live in New York City. So everyone's talking to themselves on the street. So it doesn't matter. We're all talking to ourselves, but I'm practicing the speech. And then lastly, I'll go on stage and deliver it. And then I'll watch a tape of me delivering it, and then I'll tweak and adjust it. You don't need to do all that. The most important things here is I'd say, write it out, practice it, deliver it. That would be the best process. For example, I had an experience a while ago. Has anyone ever broken a rib before? Raise your hand if you've ever broken a rib before. Who's never broken a rib before? All right, who just doesn't like to raise your hand? Raise your hand. I was speaking at a conference and I came home at night and I was at a hotel and I stepped into the shower. And when I stepped in the shower, I slipped and was horizontal in that shower and slammed my ribs down on the side of the shower. I ripped the shower curtain down because I was trying to use it to hold on. And as you can imagine, as soon as I hit that, the pain just shot through my entire body. And it was centered right around my ribs. So something had seriously gotten hurt in that moment. And I'm there on the floor of the shower. Now, here's the thing I didn't tell you, though, is that before I stepped into that shower, I had turned the water on to warm it up. And so it was gradually getting hotter and hotter and hotter. So now I'm in pain on the floor with progressively boiling hot water trickling down on me. In that moment, I have a choice. Do I stay there and endure the long-term pain of boiling hot water on my skin, or do I overcome the short-term pain of moving with my ribs so that I get away from that long-term pain? Obvious answer is get away from the boiling hot water, and so that you don't get scorched for a longer term with that water. And if that's what you would choose, I assume that that's what we'd choose. And I thought about that moment right there. And I was thinking, there's so many times in my life and other people's lives where we have a short-term pain and a long-term pain. But so often we keep choosing the long-term pain. When in reality, if we were willing to just face that short-term pain for just a moment, we may then never have to deal with that long-term pain. And it's amazing how me sitting there in that experience, I then had a realization. Here's an amazing story, and here's the life lesson from it. I went in pain afterwards. Obviously, I shut everything off. I went and wrote it out, and then I started telling it, and then eventually it brought it to stage. That process is a process I call EEL Dr. C. Go ahead and write this down on your piece of paper. This is my structure for creating the curriculum flow from beginning to end. And I want to give it to all of you. It's like my secret sauce. If I give this to you, promise to use it, because this is what I use for every single program, keynote, training that I do. The very first thing I'll do is enroll the group. So the first E stands for enroll. And you'll notice that I just did it with the group right here. How many of you have ever broken your ribs before? Some of you raise your hand. Who's never broken your ribs before? Most of you raise your hand. Who just doesn't like to raise your hand? Raise your hand. In comedy, does anyone know what that joke structure I just did right there is called? Any guesses? Okay, I'll write it down. It's called a triple or a triplet. It goes serious, funny. So you might say something like, it's so hot outside today. It's 90 degrees. So serious. It's so hot outside today. The sun is scorching. So serious. Third one. It's so hot out today. It's like Kanye. No, it's like Donald Trump going into that indictment courtroom. Serious, funny. You always throw the funny out as the last one because it's called a triplet comedy. So I always do that when I'm enrolling. How many of you? How many of you? And then who just doesn't like to raise your hand? I usually use who doesn't like to raise your hand. First thing, I roll them around the topic. The second thing is, what does enrolling do? It gets buy-in. It builds that psychological safety that I talked about before with you, with each other, and with the space. Remember all that good stuff I talked about? So what's the next one then? This right here, this next E and the L are probably the biggest mistake that most presenters and facilitators do. And if I were going to say two things that if you take nothing else from this presentation, take with you. The first one's music. This is the next one. To reveal this one, can you write down on your piece of paper the phrase 1/50th and 1/5? Your brain weighs 1/50th of your entire body, but uses up 1/5 of all your energy. So if you can imagine, it's a small little organism, but it's obviously using a ton of calories, a ton of energy to process. So your brain has a strategy though. Your brain tries to find answers quickly so that it doesn't have to process as much. So your brain is constantly like, just give me the answer, so it shuts down. So as soon as it gets the answer, it goes, boo. So if I tell you all, and I said, hey, everyone, today we're going to talk about how Abraham Lincoln passed away. Most people in the room, they just got the answer to what we're going to talk about today, and they're going to shut down. Their brain's going to shut down, and they're going to stop engaging. Only those people in the room who are excited about presidents, Abraham Lincoln, or like death or assassination are going to stay in and be like, yes, tell me more. Most people are going to shut down. So here is the second E. The second E stands for experience. What we want to do is give them an experience before we give them a label. So I'm not going to tell them we're talking about Abraham Lincoln today. I'm going to start like this. I'm going to start with the E. How many of you have ever been to the theater before? Raise your hand. Who's never been to the theater? Who doesn't like to raise your hand? Okay, great. So we got everyone enrolled in a theater. So now here's the experience. In a theater, where are the most expensive seats? Go ahead and call it out. Front row, front and center. Good. Yeah, those are good. Yeah, those are usually really expensive. The closer you are to the stage, yeah, those are really expensive. Did you know there's another section in some theaters that are even more expensive than the front row? In fact, they're so expensive that sometimes you can't even buy tickets to them. They're invite only. Does anyone know what they are? Someone might say it. The box seats. The box seats in a theater are actually sometimes more expensive than the front row. Sometimes you can't even buy a ticket for it. And they put dignitaries in there. Famous people go in there. In fact, there was this president one time named Abraham Lincoln who actually got invited to a theater, and it was this play. I don't know the name of the play. And he was there watching it with this person. Halfway through the play, he was watching that play and so engaged. In fact, here's a picture of him at the play, or a painting of him at the play. Notice how engaged he is. What's wild? He never got to see the end of that play because of this man right here. Put on the screen, John Wilkes Booth pops up, and now I introduce you to the assassin. We go through. That's the story of how Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. So notice how I went experience, and then I dropped the label, because as soon as they get the label, they're going to stop paying attention. So what type of experiences can you do? There's three main types of experiences. The first one is a story. Tell them a story from your own life or someone else's life. The second one is an activity. In just a moment, you all have a piece of paper in front of you. On this piece of paper, circle every emotion that represents how you're feeling right now. They go through and circle. They don't know why they're circling it yet. Go ahead and circle, circle. And then lastly is some kind of visual. It could be an image. It could be a movie. It could be a quick video that they watch. But all of that will play in. These are the three types of experience. Now, after you do that experience, then you drop the label. The label should be no more than 2 to 3 sentences. Ideally, it's 1 sentence. If anyone's on Twitter, this would be the tweetable statement that you would have them remember. That's how Abraham Lincoln passed away. And this is how you create a highly engaging program. It'd just be like 1 or 2 sentences that labels what the experience was about, because now they have an emotional anchor to the content that you're delivering, the lesson you want them to learn. Now that you've dropped the label in, the 1 or 2 sentence label, now we describe it. Now we're going to start giving all the details of the topic. We're going to share Abraham Lincoln's age, what number he was as president, how old John Wilkes Booth was, what happened after he got assassinated. Was he the first president to ever have this happen at 2? Has it ever happened since? And we're just going to list all the details there. And after we do the details, then we're going to go and review. We need them to review. But here's the key for reviewing. And I feel like the librarians might know this already, but there's a thing called the learning pyramid. And if we just lecture at them, they're really only going to remember about 5% of it. But if they talk or have a discussion or practice it, they'll retain 50 to 75% within 24 hours. Now, after that, they have to keep practicing. But at least in our session with them, the key to reviewing is having them turn to each other and have some sort of discussion, some sort of conversation as to here are the main points, the highlights of it. After they review, the very last part is to close. You can also call the C some sort of call to action, something that gets them to take the content and actually put it into use right away, as quickly as possible. This experience label describe can sometimes rotate a bunch before I go to the close. So I have a close for the group here today, but I'm going to keep going in a bit of a circle here and going back to another experience and another label and another describe. And one more time, because I didn't have my full screen open, can you all just quickly, who in here is an introvert? Let me just raise your hands. Where are you at? A lot of you. Okay. And then the extroverts in the room. All right. And then lastly, the ambiverts. Where are you at? Okay. All right. So I see about a third is actually what I'm seeing with this group. That's about right statistically. If we walk into a room and we say, hey, everyone, can you all just share, let's take some hands, some volunteers, share what you're feeling right now as you enter into college. Who's going to raise their hand? Not the introverts, maybe the ambiverts, but all we're going to hear from are the extroverts. So if we go right to large group discussion, we're only ever going to hear from the extroverts. And we've also now haven't even given the introverts a chance to process the content. So every time I do an activity, I'll avoid the absolute of every time, but many times when I do activities, I follow this process right here. It's called solo, small, large. We did it here today in the very beginning when I asked you, how many of you thought this was a highly engaging program? Great. On your piece of paper, write down the 5 things that you discovered. So now everyone is processing the information. So even if that introvert never speaks publicly, like out loud, they have processed the information. Then we go to small group. I sent you into small groups. Everyone spoke there. So now the introverts get a chance to speak. The ambiverts get a chance to speak. And of course, the extroverts will speak. They'll just speak no matter what. They'll just do it. And then we go large group. Now, at this point, the extreme introverts are probably still not going to speak. But what I've done is I bend the curve a little bit. I've gotten some of those introverts and some of those ambiverts comfortable enough that they might actually raise their hand and go, you know what? I feel more comfortable. I have more psychological safety in this space to be able to now share what I want to share. And we go through that process. Solo, small, large. If I don't have time and it's a short session, I usually will skip one of these and either do solo small or solo large. You just have to choose. When I have the time, I go solo, small, large. But pick 1 or 2 of them if you don't have the time. If you don't have any time, know that if you do this, you're only going to get extroverts. And if you do this, you'll get everyone. But then you won't get to hear what they're thinking. So you just got to choose what do you feel in that space? You'll notice on the screen right here are a bunch of nature images. Fun story I was reading the other day that when our brain connects 2 pieces of content that are objectively not supposed to relate, and we relate them together, it helps increase the strength of the synapses between the information that we're learning. So we have a bunch of nature images on here. You all have learned a ton of content, hopefully, around how to create a highly engaging program. Your challenge is to pick one image on this screen that represents the content you learned today that you think is going to be most valuable for you. Out of everything we learned, what's that one piece of content? And then I'm going to ask you to pick one image from this screen that relates to it. So I'll give you right now 19.6 seconds to pick an image in your content. Quickly, can you give some acknowledgement to your breakout room, either with the hands or the celebration in the chat? Just let them feel the love from you for sharing in those chats. Speaking of those breakout rooms, I would love to open up large group and hear some of these examples. So if you would be willing, would love to hear some examples. What image did you choose? What content did you choose? And then attach them together for us. Raise your digital hand. Let's see some of those examples. Let's hear what you got as a review of this. Dylan, I'm going to pop you on the screen here. Dylan, go ahead and share. What did you choose? What content? And then we'll go from there.
Cool. I chose the hand that's like looking out into the distance. And I spoke about how in the small group, I chose that because the content that's really stuck with me is like how you get people engaged without letting them like know that they're getting engaged. So those tips and tricks that you've shared with us. And also I think just like creating that safe space so they can be engaged.
Got it. Love it. Love it. Give some acknowledgement right there. Kimberly, come on over. We're going to share you, bring you into the spotlight here. Kimberly, what did you choose? Why did you choose it?
So I chose the peacock because at first glance, the peacock it looks like a bird in the wild. And then when it spreads its feathers, it's like really colorful and beautiful. And so the metaphor I chose to use was not approaching an icebreaker, like just approaching it differently and not presenting it as an icebreaker, but presenting it in a way that creates engagement and like natural participation.
Yeah. If you have to say something, say group activity. Ideally, I often won't even say anything at all. I'll just roll right into it. Oftentimes it just works, just roll right in. Nice work, Kimberly. Give Kimberly some acknowledgement right there. Katoya, I'm bringing Katoya back onto the screen here. Where'd you go?
So I chose the eagle. And the reason why is because I present a lot and I do okay. I get pretty good feedback. I get really good feedback from the audience and from my colleagues as well. So coming into this in my mind, I just was, what is he going to tell me about how I can be better, right? So I was a little skeptical. But for me, in my mind, the eagle represents excellence, right? And I've learned a lot. And I think it gives me an idea with the content, with the ELDRC about how I can become excellent at what I do. I think I'm good at what I do, but how I can improve. And I just think that a lot of the things that you said, I realized I do, but didn't know why I was doing it, learning about the psychological safety and trying to create an environment in which they can trust me, right? And feel safe, because money is a vulnerable topic. But yeah, I think the content piece, understanding the story. I mean, I usually do a lot of stories one-on-one, but now you have me thinking about the story in a large setting and how that can help. So I'm grateful to this because I've learned a lot. Thanks, Lauren, and thank you, Tom.
That means a lot. I appreciate that. And if you want to go one more step with this, one more step, next time you do a presentation, set up a camera, record it, and then watch it. Also bring some tissues, because it is sometimes very painful to watch ourselves deliver a presentation. When I first started out in the beginning, I got trained under a program called the Quantum Learning Network. It's Super Camps. The program they did is a youth program, and they would have a master facilitator attached to a junior. And I was a junior start. I ended up being a master facilitator for him, but I was a junior in the beginning. How it works is every time I would go on stage, the master facilitator would be in the back with a notebook, recording everything, versus with a camera, but then also writing notes down. As soon as I finished, take me back to another room, put the tape on, take out the notes, and walk through step by step. And then sometimes, like in just every single movement or filler words, the biggest filler words. Now, the biggest ones, by the way, are the words right at the end of a sentence. People finish a sentence, they go, actually, I don't agree with you on that, but you just plowing forward, or you know what I'm saying, or those are the biggest ones that come up. And we would catch those. We catch body movements, all that. So I could tell you, if you want to go one more step on this, maybe that would be an interesting, because I sense your skill level is already pretty high. So that might be the next step for you. So
It's gonna make me cry. I'm a crybaby.
give it up for Katoya. Give it up right there. Love it, love it, love it. Team, speaking of crying, we have come to the end of our time together. Dylan, you and I need to stop crying. Everyone else, I know, Dylan, we're crying. Everyone else is laughing. I don't understand. But I want to thank you all. First, I want to thank Lauren for bringing me in. I want to thank all of you for sticking with us. By the way, I think 90% of you retained through the whole program. Like, you stuck around. And I know how valuable your time is, because to take 2 hours to commit to this is a lot. So I emotionally appreciate that. If you want to connect with me online, these are all the places. I also am on YouTube under the same name. Find me on YouTube, come say hi. Let's keep connecting together and keep learning together through all that. I keep sharing stuff on YouTube, videos, and all the socials. So hopefully you can come by and say hi. With that, Lauren, I'm going to pass it back to you if you need to say any final words to the group before they head out.
Yeah, just thank you everyone for sticking around and for participating. I hope you all got a lot of takeaways. I know I did. For those of you presenting at orientation this summer, please, I would love to see these ideas come to fruition this summer. I know we're going to be incorporating a lot of them as well. If we can help in any way, please let us know. We'll be in touch over the next few weeks. I know everyone else is winding down and we're winding up for orientation. If it takes a little while for me to get back to you, just know I'm here. We're here to help you. And for those of you who are in our orientation operations group on Tuesday, we'll definitely spend a little bit of time processing this and maybe talking through once everyone's had a couple of days in the weekend to digest. But I know I wrote down a lot of little nuggets and I have a lot of great ideas. So I'm really excited for us to dive deeper and process. And then once we get through graduation, maybe get to spend some time really crafting some strong, engaging presentations for this summer. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Tom. As always, I know Tom will be in person in a few weeks with our students. So if any of you want to come by and see his student presentation, we're happy to share out. It's also even more incredible in person. Or if you just want to come by and meet him and say hi, we can maybe plan a little meet and greet or something. So I'll share that information out as well. But thank you all so much. And thank you, Tom.
See y'all. Bye.